Hello and welcome to Count Her Math. Happy Halloween. Today I have encountered a very horrifying thing, using statistics to mislead our people. Our people being people in the United States. If you're not watching from the United States, stick around for a good lesson on statistics, but it won't affect you much more than that. I have here a graph from Polymarket. It is giving an idea of what the elections are going to look like. Harris didn't join in until about July, so we have her spiking up to here, going back down, Trump staying at a nice steady across the line. One of the first things I'm going to point out is this graph goes to 80. It does not go to 100, and we'll discuss why that's awful. But first, why am I so mad about this? From what I know, most high schools don't require statistics to graduate. So that would mean that a lot of our American citizens do not know statistics at an educated level. They know the general idea, but have never taken a course on it. Which means that our statisticians of the world have a lot of leeway with what they can do to manipulate our general public without the public knowing. This graph is a perfect example of that. And if we jump over to their actual website real quick, so this is all from way back then till now. Let's look at a month. This one is worse. So before I mentioned how it didn't go up to 100, this one only goes up to 70. It also only goes down to 30. This is a very basic form of manipulation. It's used quite often actually, and what I've noticed before is when I help students with their statistics work, they'll make a graph like this because they don't want to use up all the paper. It's a lot of work to make the graph go from 0 to 100. But when you're working with percentages and you want to be fully honest, you have to. So let's go back to my whiteboard real quick. I pulled up an example. So a misleading graph. So here is a graph that looks like a super big increase. In our case, we have a graph that looks like Trump is super duper high. Well, this is just completely misleading. It doesn't start at 0, and graphs are supposed to start at 0. So here, this is what I have a tendency to do when I'm in my math classes, is put this little jagged here that shows you that it's not starting at 0. I'm being very blunt. You can't really miss this weird jagged thing that says I'm not starting at 0. The most accurate form, which is what I would like to see our statisticians working the elections do, is this last one. It starts at 0 and it goes up to the top. In this case, the top was like 1,000 or something. Our top would be 100%. But it shows that the graph isn't this amazingly steep line. It's actually pretty flat. We've seen this done with our election polls before, and it often leads to arguments afterwards of, well, so-and-so was so far in the lead, how could they have lost? They truly never were that far in the lead. They were just showing us graphs like this that made it look like they were super far in the lead. Now, Polymarket is a gambling site. I don't know any of the background behind it, and from what I've compared to other election charts, it's actually vastly different than other ones. Very possible that it's just, doing whatever it wants. I don't know where they get their data from. It doesn't tell me where they get their data from. It tells me that they get their data from themselves. Their source is them. Never a good idea. But that's what we have here. So if we were to make this graph a little bit more true, we would have to stretch this up and show all the way up. So 70, 80, 90, 100. There's multiple zeros in 100. Oh, this is new. It would also have to go all the way down to 0. That's an awful graph. Making this graph a whole lot more dispersed and less... It doesn't look like Trump as far in a lead as this original graph makes it out to be. Now, I'm not here to tell you who to vote for. I'm not here to tell you anything political. I am just here, well, slightly political, because I'm just here to tell you that these graphs are meant to mess with your head. They are, in my opinion, purposely displaying the information misleadingly as to edit the way you guys are seeing the world. So, for some folks, we don't like to lose. I hate losing. So if you're shown a graph that looks like this one where it's not going up to 100, it's not even starting at 0, and Trump looks like he's super duper duper far in the lead because of this misrepresentation, and you don't know who you're voting for yet. You are either way. Doesn't matter yet. It's not November 5th. We'll figure it out when we get there. But you see Trump has this massive lead on the graph. People will tend to vote for the folk with the massive lead, simply because they want to vote for the winner. So if they see that this person looks like they're in the lead, they'll vote for that person so that when they inevitably win, according to the graph, you voted for the winner and you get that feel-good chemical. Other side, that sometimes with the gambling site, making Harris look like she's doing awful even though it's not really that bad. Gambling, if the underdog wins, you make a ton of money. So they want Harris to look bad while doing good so that they can make more money off of her if she wins. If she doesn't win, they're going to lose a whole lot of money, but that's what gambling is. So regardless of who you're voting for, it's not going to affect you too much if you're set on your vote. If you are voting for Trump or you are voting for Harris and nothing is changing that, barring some major incident, then these graphs being misleading don't actually do anything for you. It's the folks who haven't made up their mind completely yet that these graphs are targeting. And those targets can sway the vote last second, especially if you're in a swing state already. Let's go look at another website real quick. So this one is New York Times, where they're saying it's 49 and 48%, which doesn't add up to 100, so we'll figure some room for error. Then this site actually goes into a lot deeper explanation of different votes, different polls, different reasons. This one actually gives you different scenarios for how Harris might win, how Trump could win. Gives you all sorts of cool things. Goes into different states. Hey, there's my state. Swing states. This is what I really liked about this website, is how wrong might a poll be. So, we've seen in many elections in my lifetime where the person bound to win loses. Usually because of electoral votes change things up, or just because the polls lied to you in the first place. Or they didn't lie, but they didn't do this cool thing that New York Times is doing, showing how likely their guess is to be off. Because things happen, polls aren't very accurate at times. If you think about who's answering that phone call you've gotten 10,000 times in the last 3 days, it's going to be those very extreme, everyone needs to know my opinion is answering those phone calls, regardless of which side they're on. So these numbers may be wrong because we don't know exactly who's answering the polls. We don't have a very good sample. It's not very accurate. We can't make people answer the question, and we can't pick and choose who we call. But there is a certain personality that's more likely to answer the phone. Now this chart I also love. So it's showing compared to Trump. This graph has a very good chance of being misread. I misread it the first time I read it, actually. So the middle of this, the even, this just refers to Trump. This is just where Trump is on their votes. We're always assuming that Trump is the middleman. And the other line is saying, where is his opponent to him? So right here, it means that Biden was doing worse than Trump. It doesn't tell us actually what percentage Trump is at. He could be at 60% votes and 40%. Doesn't really tell us. But all it does tell us, without digging very deep into it, is that at this point, Harris is above Trump. So Trump might have been at 49 and Harris at 51, but somewhere along the lines, Harris was above Trump in the run. I don't know where they got their data from. I don't know how accurate it is, but I do know how to read the graph, which is what I want to get through today. I'm not a political expert, but I have taken my fair share of statistics courses. So this is a really cool website. It's $2.70 to win. I haven't looked too far into how reliable this source is, but what it does do is let you pick through different sources. But we also looked at this Polymarket. So notice Polymarket, everything's red or blue. Everything is red or blue. There are no swing states according to Polymarket. They don't want swing states. Those aren't very helpful with their gambling. We have 2024 consensus. This one's just comparing Democrats and Republicans. It's not really looking at who's voting what. They're just kind of assuming that you're going to vote for your party. We can go over to here, and it will show us what was going on in 2020. All super cool information. Nothing really changed. That's not surprising. Let's look at Fox News. Not much changed compared to the other one. I think Alaska got a little bit more red. We have all sorts of different ones. This is apparently how the votes actually went in 2020. We also have a blank map, which you can just go through and do whatever you want, which is a very good example of what statisticians are doing nowadays, where they're going in and doing whatever they want. We're gonna make California red today. But this is a really cool site. I recommend it if you just like playing with stuff. It's very interactive. look into the logistics of it a little bit more, make sure it's an accurate site. So our big takeaways today with our statistic lesson. This is misleading because it messes with your y-axis. It leaves off the 100. It makes it look like Trump is near the tippy top already, when in reality the tippy top is way up here. Way up here. When we moved it to the 1 month one, it didn't even start at 0. It started here. It just showed us right here when we zoomed in to just the 1 month, which looks super bad because it is manipulating the data. The only thing I will give the Polymarket credit for is if you actually go to the website. I looked around for a while. You go to options. You go to settings. Auto scale. This is the problem that's happening, is that it's auto scaling the data. If we turn that off, it immediately switches it to a more realistic version of it. It puts 0 and it puts 100. Makes it much more accurate, I should say, I guess. The numbers do not change. These are the same exact numbers. The thing that does change is the way it's perceived by the viewer, especially if that viewer is not educated on statistics. So, at least Polymarket gives you a chance and gives you a chance and a nice little button to make it look correct. 1 week of data with auto scaling on. Again, starting at 30%, ending at 70%. I think Trump won if I look at this graph. Look how amazingly close to the top of the line Trump is. Harris lost. She's at the bottom of the line. Turn off auto scale. Oh, they're actually kind of both in the middle. Again, I also don't understand where Polymarket gets their data from. Their data might be wrong in general. I haven't looked that up. I'm only here to discuss the actual graph and the display of it, not the actual numbers on the graph, other than that y-axis. So, watch that y-axis, make sure it starts at 0, goes to 100. If it doesn't, take a step back. Think, is this website actually trying to intentionally mess with my brain? If so, why would they do that? Or you can take the time and make the graph yourself, which is a lot of work. Try and find that auto button to make it spread out. And vote for whoever you believe should be the winner, not who you think the winner is going to be. Thanks. I don't know how to sign off on this. I started with a lot of rage, and now we don't have a lot of rage. Now we're back to a minimum amount of rage. Thanks for watching. I hope this helped you understand a little bit of statistics and maybe a little bit of mental manipulation that happens around statistics.